My dear students, in the previous class, we discussed about the causes behind the growth of communalism in India, and we saw several factors which promoted the growth of communalism in India. Now you may please take chapter 6, page number 133, and today we are going to see the events and factors leading to the formation of the Muslim League. The first point, the Hindi-Urdu controversy. You can notice that there are two languages. So now we will discuss what is in UP, that means Uttar Pradesh, the petitions to the offices and the courts were submitted in Urdu language because it was the court language. But Hindus were against such a kind of practice and they protested against that practice. And due to their protest, in 1900, as per the government instructions, petitions were to be submitted in Hindi, meaning in Devanagari script. Before that, Urdu was the official language, but because of the protest from Hindus, Hindi became the official language. Then the Muslims protested against the new order, and Hindus also conducted many protest meetings. And normally there emerged a controversy over the language used in the office, and the controversy continued for months and worsened the relation between the two communities. Two communities means between Hindus and Muslims. The next point, it is the politics at Aligarh. That means Muslims wanted to form a political organization. After the death of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, Mohsin ul Mulk was the leader of Aligarh movement, and at the same time he was the secretary of Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College Trust, and he criticized the order of the British government granting equal status to Hindu and Urdu language. And previous passage we have seen that Hindi and Urdu language got equal status, and Nawab Mohsin ul Mulk, he was against such a kind of order. He arranged Aligarh movement against such a kind of order, and he protested against that one. And because of that, he was asked to resign from his post of secretary or detach himself from the protest movement against the government order. So he was standing against the government order. So the government asked him to resign the post of secretary or detach himself from the protest movement. So because of that, Nawab became quiet for the time being. But other Muslims, what they did, and the other leaders were annoyed, and they suggested in favor of founding a political organization of the Muslims. So Nawab, he kept quiet for some times because the British or the government asked him to resign or detach from the political movements against the government. So he kept quiet for some time, but other leaders, they wanted to make a political organization for the betterment of the Muslims. The next point, it is the anti-partition movement. And we have seen that during the initial phase of the partition, the anti-partition movement, many Muslims participated in the agitation, in the movement. But later, British government influenced the mind of educated Muslims and alienated a large number of Muslims from the anti-partition movement. And how did they do that? By assuring them that the newly found province of Bengal would be a Muslim majority region. Because of that, many of the Muslim upper class came under the influence of the British. The next point under the causes for the formation of Muslim League is Muslim deputation. Deputation means a delegation, means the person who is commissioned by other person or a public to act on its behalf. So a Muslim deputation of 35 influential Muslims, that here a Muslim deputation of 35 influential Muslims. So their duty was to act on the behalf of all the Muslims. And they, led by Aga Khan, head of the Ismaili sect of the Muslims, met the Viceroy Lord Minto at Shimla, the summer resort of the Viceroy, and they placed following demands before the Viceroy. They put forward certain demands before the Viceroy, and now we will see the demands of Muslims. First one, separate electorates. And they demanded that there should be a separate electorates, meaning the Muslims should elect their Muslim representatives to the provincial councils and imperial legislative councils through the separate communal electorate. That means for the Hindus and the Muslims, there should be separate electorates. The Muslims would select their representative or elect their representative to the provincial councils and the imperial legislative councils. The second point is the weightage in representation. The Muslims should be given proportionally more seats than their numbers justified. More weightage should be given to the Muslims and they should be represented adequately. And the third one, separate representation in the municipal and university bodies. There should be some scheme of giving adequate representation to the Muslims in municipal and district boards and the senates and syndicates of Indian university. That means they should get a separate representation or a kind of reservation where in the municipal and university bodies. And the fourth one, greater representation in civil, military and judicial services. There should be a greater representation of the Muslims in civil and military services. There should be at least one Muslim judge in every high court. So they wanted a representation in civil, military and judicial services, and finally they concluded that at least one Muslim judge in every high court they demanded. And the last one, foundation of the Muslim university. There should be a Muslim university which would act as a center for Muslim religious, cultural and intellectual life. And they demanded for the formation of a Muslim university for what? In order to act as the center for Muslim religious, cultural and intellectual life. So these were the demands from the Muslim deputation. There were altogether 5 demands were there: separate electorates, weightage in representation, separate representation in the municipal and university bodies, greater representation in civil, military and judicial services, and the foundation of the Muslim university. And there, Lord Minto, the viceroy that time, he assured all these things. Lord Minto assured the Muslims leaders that the political rights and the interest of the Muslims would be protected. According to Professor Anil Chandra Banerjee, Lord Minto's policy was motivated by deep political calculations. In order to weaken the anti-partition movement of Bengal, it was essential to divide the Hindus and the Muslims. So, when the Muslim deputation put forward their demands, Lord Minto assured that the Muslims' rights and interests would be protected. And it was having a deep political calculation. Minto was having a deep political calculation. What was that? In order to weaken the anti-partition movement, it was very essential to divide the Hindus and the Muslims. So, he thought of such a kind of thing, and in a way he granted or assured that the Muslim rights and interests would be protected. And the ultimate aim was to divide the Hindus and Muslims so that the anti-partition movement in Bengal may get weakened. And besides, it was necessary to clip the wings of the Congress by making politically feeble. Feeble means very mild or weak. And the second reason for granting or assuring all the demands from Muslim deputation was that in order to control the power of Congress by making it politically very feeble. Feeble means very mild and weak. And then to make this policy successful, the British showed special favors to the Muslims with a view for orienting them to an anti-Hindi and anti-Congress stance. So, with this purpose, they gave special favors to the Muslims. And what was the reason for that one? In order to create an anti-Hindi or anti-Hindu and anti-Congress movement in the minds of Muslims. So here we have seen the events and factors leading to the formation of the Muslim League. First one, the Hindi-Urdu controversy, politics at Aligarh. Then Muslim deputation, and under the Muslim deputation we have seen several points, and finally Lord Minto's assurance. So the next class we will discuss about the formation of the Muslim League. Thank you. Have a nice day.